Become a wealth creator today. Text VISIT to 800-454-1184 to schedule your 15-minute call with Eric and his team. That's VISIT to 800-454-1184.
Welcome to Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman. I'm Luann Fulmer, and we know you have a lot of questions about retirement. That is why we're here. Eric has some fantastic ideas for your retirement. Of course, we want you to remember his phone number. It's 800-454-1184. Pretty easy to remember. It's an 800 number, 454-1184. You'll be hearing about Eric's blueprint to worryless wealth. Getting this blueprint could help you with some of your very concerns you're having about retirement. And if there's something you'd like to specifically address, reach out to us at 800-454-1184, or you can find us online anytime at wealthcreatorradio.com. Eric, here we are again together. Good to be with you.
Yeah, Luann, it's always good to be helping the listeners really kind of get an idea of what should you be doing today and what would be the next steps and how to really have a plan. I mean, we all spend so much time thinking about, vacations or home improvement projects or other things like that, but it is amazing how few people really take a lot of time to spend on their financial plan, which ironically would help them get more home improvements done and more vacations, right? So,
Exactly.
So hopefully we can fix that today.
Right. We've all been caught off guard at some point. And it makes me think of the deer in the headlight. Look, when you're driving down the highway and there's that deer right out in the middle of the road and it just freezes. It doesn't know what to do. This happens in life when everything hits you at once and you kind of just have that paralyzed feeling. And I want to talk about that right now, Eric. How does analysis paralysis impact people who need to be making decisions about retirement, but they're not doing it?
Well, ironically, I guess I should throw in there that my youngest son is now the patrol leader for his deer in the headlights patrol for Boy Scouts. But so I kept asking him, "Are you the chief deer, or are you the one who leads them to the headlights?" But yeah, so a lot of people do have analysis paralysis. I mean, I've recently was working with somebody we were helping them with some long-term care solutions, some options versus by the traditional long-term care, and there's some way better options out there. And they're like, well, hold it. The first numbers you gave us were this, and why are they now this? Well, let's see. You've had a birthday since then. You now told us more about your medical information. Oh, yeah, and the company had a rate change 4 months ago. We've been talking about this for almost a year. It's kind of like, why is my mortgage rate different? I applied a year and a half ago, and or something like that, right? Things change over time, and then people are shocked that, well, hold it, but I was looking at this, and now you've changed it. It's like, no, yeah, you need to take some action, and I don't know what it is. I mean, financial decisions always have a lot of emotional baggage kind of tied to them, so sometimes it can be very tough to make some decisions, but yeah, that analysis paralysis part can really, really, really harm you in the long run. And also, some of it's the fault of the financial industry, too. I mean, I remember when I first started in the business in the early 90s, back then FMC, which is now United Defense, but they had a very complicated 401k. They had guaranteed investment, stock, and bond. Right? 3 options, right? I mean, how nice and simple is that? You look at most people's 401ks now, I don't know, they probably have a low end of 20 to 30 options and maybe up to 50 or 60. It's kind of like going to the store and, somebody says, give me some peanut butter, and there's 50 versions of it on the shelf. Which one do you buy? That's the hard part. So yeah, having a plan is important, but definitely getting off of that analysis and just taking action. I mean, there's a great thing called imperfect action, and I love that phrase. And it's just more about if you can get 80% of the stuff done, it doesn't matter if 100% was right, as long as 80% of it got done, then usually it kind of almost the momentum and stuff will get the rest done.
I love that. Imperfect action. Just do it. Just get started. Yeah. I do think some people put off planning because they're scared of of how hard it's going to be, right? I mean, we all kind of just avoid things because of that. So, Eric, can you talk about your office and what people can expect when they come in to meet with you and your team?
Well, of course, they don't even have to come in anymore, right? I mean, it can be virtual, it can be on the phone, so it could be a Zoom call, it could be a in person, or in our office. And Of course, we've got all the safety protocols and all that fun stuff set up. But, the biggest difference with coming in and having somebody to talk to, we're not really a therapist. I often kind of almost wish I'd taken some more psychology classes for sure, especially maybe marriage and family counseling for
Yes.
some couples that you work with.
I bet.
Really the main issue is when you're sitting down with somebody and you have another set of eyes, it's always better. It's just like when you lost something and somebody else walks up and goes, it's right behind you, and you feel stupid. And, and it's just because sometimes you just overlook that or you didn't see that. And lots of times it's also just you don't know what you don't know. And until somebody tells you that, I mean, I'm amazed at how many people say, oh, I've got a great tax person. I've got this great tax person. And yet they're missing out on all these ways to have tax-free money building up. And their tax person's never talked to them about it. I'm like, you said you have a really good tax person. Why haven't they brought this up? And they have no answer for me. Lots of times you think you may have one set of situation, but it may be actually different. So really when people come in with us, it's more just let's have a worry less wealth talk. Let's find out what your concerns are, what your goals are, and how can we make you worry less about your money. And then we follow up with actually a strategy session where we actually show you what that blueprint is that you have currently. So even though you don't think you have a plan, you do have a plan, even if the plan was no plan. So I kind of equate it for the same as if you're driving down the freeway, you are heading somewhere. It may or may not be the right direction, but you are heading somewhere. And so we will tell you which way you're headed. Not if it's right or wrong. We'll just tell you, hey, here's where you're headed. Here's the issues that you got. Here's some things you should probably fix. And then we leave it up to the client and say, okay, it's up to you. Do you want to take any action? Do you want to have us help you? Do you want to do it on your own? But that's when we leave it up to you to make that decision. So it's a very low key kind of process. And what we've been doing is we've been waiving our planning fee, which is usually $1,000 to $1,500 at least. Main reason for that is just we want to make sure people get this information. So I'd rather spend a little bit of time. And some people may not be the right fit for us and may not be great clients for us. So that may or may not work, but at least we'll give them that information. But for a lot of people, they are people we can help. And once we have that information, once we show them that plan and we can say, hey, look, here's how you can do it. Oh, you can actually retire sooner. Or at least you can say, these are some changes you can make, and then you'll be able to retire a lot quicker than you thought you would have been. So there's all sorts of situations that come up. But again, if you want to take action on this and you want to set up a time, all you have to do is give us a call and leave us a message, and we'll give you a call back, and we'll set up a time to talk. Again, it could be on the phone, Zoom, or in person. 800-454-1184. Again, you can call us at 800-454-1184, or you can book directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com. Again, it's wealthcreatorradio.com.
When we're retired, we're not going to have that paycheck coming in, so it's Eric's goal to help you have a worry less wealth retirement. And, retirement is a new phase of life, and we all know anything new can be terrifying, okay? So when we come back, we're going to talk about how you can change up your routine to get you ready for retirement. This is Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman. We'll be right back.
If something's worth doing, it's worth doing right. There's a particular time of life this phrase couldn't be more appropriate. How can you know you'll live the retirement you've always imagined? After all, life can be so unpredictable. You've worked hard and saved. Watch your accounts go up and down with the market. Your advisor says, don't worry, you'll be fine. But you still don't feel confident. Eric Heckman at Heckman Financial has a checklist to help you find out if you're on the right track for retirement. Take his checklist challenge. If you can check all the boxes with confidence, you may be ready for retirement. If not, Eric can help you address any potential costly mistakes. To get Eric Heckman at Heckman Financial's complimentary checklist, call or text LIST to 800-454-1184. See if you've got it right. Take the checklist challenge today. Call or text LIST to 800-454-1184. Firm offers insurance services. Investment advisory services offered through Heckman Financial and Insurance Services, Inc. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Hi, you're listening to Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer. Eric has done this for over 30 years now. And when I say done this, I mean helping people retire. In 2020, Eric, more than half of all Americans were covered by some type of life insurance. So a good number of people see life insurance as a really useful tool to protect their families and their loved ones. But what I want to address today, Eric, is not really do I need life insurance, but rather do I need life insurance for my retirement?
Yeah, well, life insurance has been always kind of boiled down to two things. Do you owe someone, and do you love someone? So lots of times when you're starting out, it's you owe a bunch on a mortgage, right? So you want to have enough to cover that mortgage in case you're gone and for the rest of your family. Maybe your mortgage is paid down a lot more. The kids are grown, so it's less dependent on you being around. So that's when people start going, oh, well, do I still need it? What should I be doing? Well, there is some big changes that happen when somebody passes away during retirement. I mean, if you're a married couple and, one of you passes away, you not only lose that smaller of the two Social Security checks, you also flip from being married to single filing on the income taxes. And so I had one client that literally, after his wife died, he lost some of her income, some other stuff. So he made $20,000 less, but his tax bill was actually $20 more. So it was almost, his tax bill was almost no different. It was almost a dead even, break even type of thing on the taxes. But he made $20,000 less. It's like, well, hold it. How can you make so much less and have the same tax bill? Well, again, you're no longer married. Now you're single filing, so all those brackets go up way faster. So, that's where sometimes the life insurance can kick in. The other thing, too, is a lot of the modern policies now, finally, in California, it took them a long time, have long-term care benefits. So life insurance may not actually be about you dying. It might be more about you needing care and how to pay for it and not using up all those dollars that your surviving spouse may need for their retirement after you're gone. So it can be a very useful tool for retirement now.
Yeah, I love that life insurance policies can be used for long-term care benefits. So to figure that out, if that's something maybe you might want to use in retirement, what would be some key questions we should ask ourselves?
Well, like I said, of course, how much do you owe, right? So if you've got a lot of debt, a lot of people nowadays, especially with the tax law being so favorable and when we had interest rates so low, it didn't make sense to pay off that 2.5% or 3% mortgage. Now, if you got a newer one, it may really make sense to pay it off. So, so that's one of those things. If you owe a lot, you might need to have that life insurance keeps going just because of one person passes away and you lose that Social Security check. Can the remaining income for the surviving spouse still pay for that mortgage? And often it may not be the case. But then also, in terms of just wealth transfer, I mean, the worst tool in the world is IRAs and 401ks to leave behind because, if you leave that to the next generation, your kids have 10 years to blow that money. I mean, literally they have to spend all that money and pay all the taxes on it. So, you don't necessarily want to be doing that for, leaving those types of assets. Whereas if you can leave life insurance where it's tax free, if you do that tax-free money, it's all theirs. They can do whatever they want with it. So, there's a lot of benefits to having that. Again, you have to be able to figure out, how do I pay for it, right? Where does the money come from to fund it, and what type of policy it is? It can't be group insurance that expires when you quit your job. It can't be term insurance that runs out. And so there's some great new options, but people really need to educate themselves and find out what's out there. So that's something that if you wanted to take advantage of, look at those resources first at the toolbox. Check those out. If you want to set up a time after that, we can definitely talk and help you. But this is probably one of the most critical times, the biggest shifts we've had in the economy in a positive way.
Yes.
So you hear all the bad news. This is a positive. These are some great new options out there, some stuff I haven't seen ever before. So loving it because we have so many more options for our clients. So again, if you want to get that, you can either text the word toolbox or you can just leave a message. Both of them would be 800-454-1184. Again, that number is 800-454-1184. Or you can request it directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Thanks so much for joining us. This is Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer. So we're talking today about key questions that you should ask yourself to try to see whether or not you still need life insurance in retirement. Now, Eric, a lot of people who are trying to retire or who are retiring probably do have life insurance policies already in place. What should they be thinking about?
Well, are the policies that they own, right? So that's one of the big ones. So like I mentioned earlier there, if it's group insurance or term insurance, I mean, term is something that literally is good for a term. So if it's a 5-year term, guess what? After 5 years, it goes away. If it's a 20-year term, it goes away after 20 years. Usually those policies, by the way, say you're paying, $100 a month, most of them I find go up 10 times. So that $100 a month may be $1,000 a month after that. And so that's very brutal. And lots of times, unfortunately, I have these phone calls and discussions with people that will reach out to us and say, hey, I've got this policy, it's expiring, I'm 78, what should I get? It's like, not much, because sadly, a lot of times your health may not be good enough anymore, but also just the cost would be prohibited. That's the hard part is does this make sense for your situation? And so you usually want to have some sort of permanent insurance. You want to have something that's going to be there for the rest of your life. So again, there has to be something that isn't going to run out. If it is a permanent policy and you've had it for a long time, you want to get what they call an in-force illustration, in-force. So meaning the policy is not lapsed, it's in force. And that'll tell you if they run it out from now till age 100, is it going to still be there? Because again, lots of times I have gotten calls with people who have cash value policies that are running out of money in their 80s, and lots of times it was because they saw a policy that was going to earn 7 or 8% every year, and then rates went down to 4, and that changed a lot of things. It was great for your mortgage, but it really was not good for your life insurance. So these are some things that to be thinking about is how to pay for these. How are you going to keep them going? And then also is it trying to help your surviving spouse more, or is it trying to help the next generation? So there's a lot to be said for when you're doing this planning.
That's what I was going to ask. Are there any other factors we should be thinking about?
Well, I mean, the probably the biggest one is the misuse and abuse of life insurance. I would call it, I guess. Some people like to call it the laser fund, or they'll call it LIRP, which is like a life insurance retirement plan, or 7702, which just is just a tax code that talks about life insurance. So they'll do anything to call it something that they don't have to use the words life insurance. So that way they can hide it, disguise it. And what are they hiding for? What are they sheltering by? Why are they making up these cutesy terms to not actually say what it is? It reeks of somebody trying to tell you something that's not and trick you into stuff, right? So be careful if anybody's trying to use those types of, goofy terms. Life insurance can be a great tool. I mean, especially the overfunded, we've used it a lot for clients where you put extra money in there. You fund it you try to keep the life insurance part actually small, and you try to overfund it and get a bunch of cash value in there. And it can be a great tool that can actually pay a lot of tax-free retirement income. So, there is definitely a great advantage to doing it. But the problem is you usually have to fund it for at least 5 years, and you usually need like a 10-year timeline before you start touching the income. But I've seen people where they say, oh, yeah, I'm going to start it in 2 years or 3 years. Well, it just doesn't have time to build up enough money and work. And why did somebody talk them into that? Well, because they got paid a lot of money. And sadly, that's the only reason. And so with life insurance can be a really critical tool. It can make really good sense for long-term care protection. It can, make sense for tax-free income. There's a lot of great things, but again, it has to be part of an overall plan. If it's not, then how are you going to know if it's right for you? So, again, with here at Heckman Financial, we've got this great thing where we've built this blueprint to worry less wealth. We typically charge $1,500, but we've been waiving that for radio listeners and podcast listeners. So again, if you want to take advantage of that, we'll set up a first phone call just to find out what your situation is. And then we'll go from there, and we'll actually create that blueprint for you that'll tell you where you are in terms of income planning, investment planning, taxes, healthcare, and legacy. And then we'll know what tools are right for you, what tools are wrong, and where you should be taking action and what things you should not be doing. Once you have that data and that knowledge, then it's so much easier to to figure out what you should be doing versus just taking what people say. Now we at least have some evidence to say, oh yeah, this makes sense for my situation. So again, if that's something you want to take advantage of, all you have to do is text the word visit, 800-454-1184. Again, text the word visit, 800-454-1184, or go online to wealthcreatorradio.com.
Eric will explain what IULs are and how they work, if they could make sense for you. That's all coming up next. So stick around for more of Wealth Creator Radio and Eric Heckman.
Do you know whether your retirement plan has any weak points? Discover ways on giving your financial future the proper tune-up. Simply go online to wealthcreatortoolbox.com to gain a better understanding in taxes, Social Security, and other ways to manage your portfolio.
And that's how it's done.
That's wealthcreatortoolbox.com.
Hi, we're so glad to have you join us. This is Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman, who is a well-known speaker and author, and he's here to give you guidance for everything that you do to and then all the way through retirement. He wants to help you worry less. We're talking today about questions that you need to ask yourself to try to determine if you still need life insurance in your retirement years. So, Eric, what we're learning today is that because your financial needs are different in retirement, so are your insurance needs, right?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there's, like we talked about earlier, there's things where, when you're talking about, do you owe money? Do you need to cover a mortgage? Do you have young kids? But then, of course, as you're aging and stuff, you don't have, hopefully, those young kids living at home. Hopefully they've got, at least you kicked them out if they hadn't moved out on their own, right? I got 3 sons, so they better not all end up being at my house forever.
Back at your house, yeah.
Yeah, so, but then, there's other things like long-term care, retirement income, just tax-free growth of money. So there's a lot of other reasons that you might need to have the life insurance there that are very different from when you were buying it, say in your 20s, 30s, or 40s.
One of the life insurance options that we often hear about is that indexed universal life, or IULs. So I want to talk about that. Explain to us how it works, please.
The original policies were kind of more like a 30-year fixed mortgage kind of thing. So that's the easier way to kind of show the differences. So when you're talking about whole life was where you actually invested in that company. So, if you, like I started my career with New York Life. So if you owned a policy with New York Life, you literally owned kind of a little piece of that company, and you were dependent on them for paying you dividends and giving you the money. Then in the 80s, E.F. Hutton, if you remember, when they talk, everybody listens.
Everybody listens, yes.
So if you're old enough to know that commercial, they actually came out with first universal lives. And so these are much more like a variable rate mortgage where things were now, kind of separated out more. With universal life, you have this cost of insurance that you see, you have the earnings that you see, and it's a lot more visible. But that was in the Jimmy Carter days, the high interest rates. And then once those rates dropped, everybody's like, whoa, that's not working so good. And then they had variable life, which was in the stock market. But again, you're trying to make this money be more guaranteed and grow. So those had so much fees and costs that, finally everybody realized that indexing was the way to go. And so the big difference here is the universal life part. It means is you see the fees, you see the costs. So everything's kind of broken out so you can really see like how much is the cost of insurance, how much is the cost of running the policy. That's literally every annual statement shown to you, for what all those costs are. But the big difference here is instead of your money getting a set rate from the insurance company or being based on the insurance company's performance, now they're making it off some stock market index. So of course, like S&P 500 is the main index that most people use. So say if the cap was 10%. What that means is they'll pay you anywhere from 0 to 10% if the stock market does that from usually what they call an annual point to point. So if it was June 1st to June 1st the next year, they'll look back over that year. How did that money do? How did that grow? And then they'll pay you anywhere from 0 to 10%. Now, if the market did 11, 12, 15, 20, whatever, you don't get that. You only get
10%. Yeah.
But 10 on something that's guaranteed is pretty dang good, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now what happens if it goes the other direction, right? If it goes negative something, well, the neat thing there is you don't lose a dime. You just earn 0, but now you started over, and guess what? That starting point's a lower starting point. Well, typically after the market drops, it usually will rebound eventually. And so, now that you've got locked in that lower number, it's really easy to have a higher percentage gain that next year. Even if the market doesn't come back to where it was, again, it's like a 1 year sprint. It's not a marathon. So you're just looking from year to year to see how your money did. And so, so these can be really good policies to earn some pretty decent money. That's the good part. Obviously has the life insurance aspect too. Don't forget that.
Right.
Right. So, and so typically there's a couple ways that works. One is you have a flat death benefit. So if you started off, say at, a $500,000 death benefit, if you build up $100,000 of cash value, it may still be 500, which means as your cash value grows, you're getting less and less life insurance. The other way is you can do it, your cash value plus your death benefit. And so those kind would be if you had 100,000 of cash value and the death benefit is 500, now it's 6. So, that's one of those things where, again, that's a cost item. If you're buying more insurance, of course, it costs more. So if you're trying to have that death benefit grow, then that may make sense. But if you're trying to get the cash value to grow a lot, lots of times you want the life insurance to actually be smaller, which sounds counterintuitive. But basically, the government said if you have too much money, because people basically in the 80s were being really abusive of life insurance, they were dumping in tons of money. They dump in like $100,000 into a $5,000 insurance policy at the time that was paying 12%, tax-free. Well, that was a pretty good deal. And so, but then the government's like, hold it, if you're dumping $100,000 into a $5,000 policy, this is not life insurance. This is just a tax dodge. So they do have these limits that say, okay, you have to have so much death benefit compared to your cash value. So, again, there's little things, little nuances. What I find is a lot of people who sell these don't tell people these nuances. They don't tell them the pros and cons of how it's designed. And a lot of times they're designing it so they make the most commission for themselves, which, again, is not the thing you want. So you want somebody who's more of a fiduciary advisor, somebody who knows this in and out and can design it for what you're looking for. So, again, that's one of those things that, if you wanted to set up a time to just talk and go over this, see if what some people call the laser fund or life insurance retirement plan or 7702, all these goofy names, it's life insurance, people. It's index universal life insurance. It's, not the super great IUL. It's just a good product, good tool. But again, like everything, it's got its pros and cons. So again, if that's something you want to set up a time and talk, we can go through that and go over that for you to see if it makes sense for your situation. So, if you want to set up a time, all you have to do is text the word VISIT, 800-454-1184. This could be, virtual, on the phone, whatever. But again, text the word VISIT, 800-454-1184. Or you can book directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
And this is Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman of Heckman Financial. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer. So you kind of have taken us through, we kind of have a good idea of what's good and bad, but I don't know, you want to go into kind of a list of pros and cons of an indexed universal life insurance policy?
Well, like I said, I mean, they can be really great, but what people forget or conveniently ignore and don't mention much or whatever terms you want to use. I mean, there's one guy who gave up his insurance license so that way he can have a radio show, print books, talk about life insurance, endlessly, index life insurance. But his whole family's licensed, and then they'll sell you the stuff. But since he has no license, he can say whatever he wants and get away with it. So, you want to make sure you're doing the right thing. I mean, I've seen some of their proposals that they had, and I sent it to their compliance at the one company, and they were shocked that they were using these things. And so you got to be careful of how it's being approached. It can be a great tool to build up money, but it takes time. It is not, this is not, some, strike it rich or, meme stock type thing. This is very slow. This is more tortoise than the hare type of thing. So, most of the policies are good after 10 years. You usually need to fund them for at least 5 years, maybe even up to 10. But if you're trying to get money and have great earnings and stuff after 1 or 2 years, the costs are just too much, initially. So the costs get really watered down over time, but there are some upfront costs that happen. And so, again, that's one of those things where it's all about expectations, right? I mean, if you're trying to use a tool that is not designed. I mean, if you're trying to do 80 miles an hour in a golf cart, good luck, right?
Right.
I mean, you can try all you want. It ain't going to happen. So if you're trying to make this be super high flying, it's not. It's going to be a slow growth type vehicle, but it can be a great tool to build up a lot of tax-free cash and be a really great source to do that. But again, you gotta have somebody who knows what they're doing, not somebody just sold your friends and then they're going to be out of the business in 6 months or, something like that. Somebody who's a fiduciary-based advisor like we are here at Heckman Financial. So, again, if you want to figure out, hey, what is all this life insurance things about? Should I be doing it? Should I be using it? We'll give you all the real story, and then you can decide, hey, is this for me or not? So again, if you want to set up a time to talk, just text the word visit, 800-454-1184. Again, text the word visit, 800-454-1184, 800-454-1184, or book directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Wealth Creator Radio and Eric Heckman will be right back.
If something's worth doing, it's worth doing right. There's a particular time of life this phrase couldn't be more appropriate. How can you know you'll live the retirement you've always imagined? After all, life can be so unpredictable. You've worked hard and saved. Watch your accounts go up and down with the market. Your advisor says, don't worry, you'll be fine. But you still don't feel confident. Eric Heckman at Heckman Financial has a checklist to help you find out if you're on the right track for retirement. Take his checklist challenge. If you can check all the boxes with confidence, you may be ready for retirement. If not, Eric can help you address any potential costly mistakes. To get Eric Heckman at Heckman Financial's complimentary checklist, call or text LIST to 800-454-1184. See if you've got it right. Take the checklist challenge today. Call or text LIST to 800-454-1184. Firm offers insurance services. Investment advisory services offered through Heckman Financial and Insurance Services, Inc. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Hi, this is Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman. Eric is president of Heckman Financial for 28 years now, and he wrote the book Worry Less Wealth to open up our eyes to all the things available for us to have a remarkable retirement. And that's what the show is all about. If you want to get that book, you can request it online, or you can also request an e-version of that book as well. Of course, wealthcreatorradio.com is the website. All right, Eric, we've come to the time in our show. I'm going to give you some top 5 signs that you need a new advisor, okay? So if you're feeling like you, our listeners, are feeling like maybe you just dread going to your advisor, you might feel like your questions are going unanswered. Maybe you're bothering that person. So here we go. Top 5 signs you need a new advisor. And Eric, this comes from NerdWallet. Number 5 is, if your eye is already wandering, then you might need a new advisor. What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, if it feels like things aren't working out or, for whatever reason, you're starting to say, hey, yeah, this just doesn't feel right, usually that's correct. A lot of times, listening to your gut is a good way to go.
Maybe it's time for a second opinion, something like that.
Yep, exactly.
So if your advisor only calls you when they want to make some trades, that's another sign that you might need a new advisor. Can you talk about why that would be problematic, Eric?
Well, it really depends also on how are they getting paid. I mean, if they're only calling you to move money around because they're going to get a new paycheck every time they're moving that money, that's really, really problematic. And I would definitely run from that advisor, as soon as possible. There's one thing if they're just making some changes and tweaks, but really they should be calling you on a regular basis. If it was a bad time, if there's a crash or downturn and they did not call you, that is a serious sign for you to get a new advisor, because that's when you need to hear from them more than ever.
Right. Big time red flag. So how often do you think we should be talking with our advisor?
Well, really, I think that one is something that you need to kind of set those expectations up from day one. And I mean, some of my clients hate talking about money. I mean, they just really, they think it's painful and, they'd rather not do it, but it's kind of like dentistry. They know it's something they got to do, so they'll go do it. Some people, they only want to talk once a year, and that's already painful enough. And some people want to talk every quarter, every 6 months. So, I mean, I would say, it has to be at least every year. But, for some things, you might want to be checking in at least every 6 months. So, again, the biggest thing is, did you set up that plan? Did they ask you how often do you want to be meeting with people? And are they following up and continuing with that, right? I mean, if they haven't met with you for 2 or 3 years, oh my gosh, yeah, time for a new one.
Another sign that you might need a new advisor is if your financial situation is changing, but the advice isn't. Eric, what kinds of changes need to be happening with our money as we get close to retirement?
Well, I think if you're an adult and you're going to a pediatrician, it'd be very weird, right? I mean, you'd be very tall compared to all the other patients, and yes, they give you usually a lollipop or something, so that part's cool, or maybe a toy.
Yeah.
But it just feels weird, and you probably actually nowadays they'd probably think you're pretty creepy to even be there. So same thing with financial stuff. I mean, as you're getting closer to retirement, if they're just saying, oh, just hang in there or just hold on, or yeah, no, we don't need to make any changes, but you're going to retire next year or 2 years, and they're not positioning assets to start having money come out. They're not figuring out a plan to where those monies should be today to optimize the best income for you in retirement. Those would be really big red flags that, that should be changing as you get older. And I mean, obviously simple things like, if you got divorced or married or had a kid or any of those things, did they start talking to you about the new things that need to be taken care of, during those life changes and such. So, if they're not doing that and they're just kind of giving you the same stuff, well, we were talking about robo-advisors earlier. Maybe, that's what you should do is have somebody like that and not be paying them. But I would then really start looking for a new full-service advisor.
That's why it's really important to have that right person helping you.
You can have an accountant for sure, but the accountants, again, are usually focused on trying to save money and lower taxes today. So sometimes I have accountants tell my clients, hey, you should be doing this. And we look at their plan and go, that would actually end up costing you more taxes in the long run. Are you sure you want to do that? There's different types of planning. There's different types of reasons. Lots of times, though, hey, we should be doing some Roth conversions, and we should be looking at that and have your accountant run the numbers, and we could see if that makes sense in your situation. So, there's a lot of things where you can work together with those other professionals. And really, whoever's your financial advisor is now, if they're not working with your other professionals, if they're not looking at your tax return every year to see how things are playing out, that's a sign that they're really not doing a very good job. They really should be looking at all that. They should be checking your beneficiaries for you. They should be looking at the tax return every year to see if it's working with your plan. So if that's something that you want to take care of and you want to get a second opinion and say, hey, how are things? What would things be like if I was working with somebody else? How's my advisor doing? What does it all look like? One of the things that we're doing here for our radio listeners is we're waiving the planning fee. So our $1,000 to $1,500 planning fee is not there. We're going to first and foremost just find out what you're worried about, what's your concerns, and then we can build you that blueprint to worry less wealth. We'll show you what plan you have now, that income, investment, tax, healthcare, legacy plan. We'll go through that blueprint to worry less wealth, show you the path you're on, tell you what's good and bad, what things you might want to change, and then it's up to you if you want to take action and use us or do it on your own or do it with your other advisor. But really the big critical thing is getting that information first. So again, if that's something you want to take advantage of, all you got to do is give us a call. 800-454-1184. Again, give us a call and leave us a message at 800-454-1184, or you can book directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
You're listening to Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman, and Eric advises his clients by helping them preserve their assets, increase their income, and reduce taxes, just like he's talking about today. So we are giving you the top 5 signs that you need a new advisor. Number 2 on the list, Eric, is your financial advisor does not listen to you. And that seems like a pretty big problem. So, Eric, how do you make sure that your clients know that you hear and you understand their concerns?
Well, I think women probably run into this more than anyone, but there'll be some advisors that literally will only talk to the man and ignore the other half of the family there. That's not right. So if you're getting that feeling, definitely you need a new advisor. If you're asking them a question, they should be responding to you, answering your concerns, not just blowing it off and just moving on. And if they seem to keep doing that, I would ask them directly. And if they still don't give you a good answer, then yeah, it's definitely time to find somebody different. And they really should be finding out what your concerns, what your goals, where do you want to be in 3 years? What do you think things are going to be like? And what would you like your life to be like? And, if they don't know those things, how are they going to help you get there?
And finally, our number one of our top 5 signs you need a new advisor is you're afraid to call your financial advisor. Eric, what advice do you have for someone who feels like they might be bothering their current advisor when they have questions?
That's really silly. If somebody's got that kind of feeling, because that means that advisor has not made them feel very welcome. I mean, really, our clients are truly friends and family kind of thing. I mean, we're there. We help them do a lot of stuff, and we'll talk to them about all the different little things and their pets and all the, their trips and things like that. And sometimes people do actually call me up and say, hey, I didn't know if I should bother. And it's like, no, I want you to call me. You should be asking those questions. And if you're feeling like that person's not going to want you to talk to them or feel scared to talk to them, then yeah, it's time. They're not giving you a good feeling, and they're not really there for you. They're causing that feeling for some reason. So that's time definitely to make a change.
What would you say to them about getting a second opinion, Eric?
Well, I think that it's just so critical. I mean, just like if you had a big ailment and, a scary medical diagnosis, you're going to get some other people's opinions, right? You're going to find out, what should you be doing? You're not going to just hopefully go on to Yelp and read, all the bad reviews or something. Reviews are so sketchy if they're real or not anymore, right? You want to talk to somebody who's a professional, and you want to talk to somebody who can give you real advice. And, that's one of the things we can do for you is we can help people, give them that second opinion and say, okay, here, let's run out your plan. Let's see what your income plan looks like. We will go through it on our system with you to make sure we know it's correct. And, we'll look at those investments. What's the risk level that you have? And is it appropriate? And do you even know what your risk level is? What's the tax plan that you have? And is that being done well or is it being ignored? What are the healthcare issues and how are you going to pay for all those costs? And then lastly, who's getting your stuff and are things set up right? Once you can see all that from another pair of eyes, it may be sometimes I've literally had people go, hey, they're doing great. They're doing a good job for you. Not anything we can do. But there's a lot of people where it's like, wow, no, there's some changes you should be making. And did you know about this or that? And, and that's the kind of info you really need to have. So again, there's no cost right now for radio listeners. So if you want to give us a call, and we'll do that blueprint to worry less wealth, give us a call at 800-454-1184. Again, 800-454-1184, or book directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com. wealthcreatorradio.com.
Become a wealth creator today. Text VISIT to 800-454-1184 to schedule your 15-minute call with Eric and his team. That's VISIT to 800-454-1184.
Thanks so much for joining us. This is Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman. Remember, you can text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184 to get this digital toolbox from Eric, including his book and other wonderful educational materials about retirement. Now, Eric, you and I often discuss challenges and risks in retirement, and so I thought we'd bring another story about someone who's experienced some obstacles in retirement. We call it a financial fail. So, Eric, what do you have for us today?
Well, this one's more of a compilation is, probably the best way to say it is sometimes people, for whatever reason, they just think they should go for it, or they don't realize how much they're putting in one spot, right? And I have one client that he's like, okay, all I need is like 50,000 more for Bitcoin, and I'll get that house in Pismo Beach and be moving. Well, then of course Bitcoin tanked huge, and that he ain't getting that house anytime soon. And then I had some other clients that said, hey, and at the beginning of 2022, they said, hey, we've got some extra cash. Let's go for it. They must have looked up every high risk tech stock that you could possibly buy. I'd never seen somebody lose money so fast. They had 80% losses on several stocks, and just kind of huge things. And and then same with companies, with people who work at a certain company, and they'll sit on that company's stock just thinking it's going to always be great. then it dives down, and then they're getting close to retirement, and now all of a sudden they don't have all that money. And so we all know you're supposed to diversify, but sometimes it doesn't sound fun, right? Especially when something's shooting up a bunch. I've got one client at Apple who we've just always been selling off 10 or 15%. And sometimes we sell off 10 or 15 and it shot back up. So it was great. But sometimes it also went down, and it was good that we did it, right? So, you really should never have more than 10% of your overall net worth in any one, investment, if it's a stock or Bitcoin or whatever it is, right? And, unfortunately, people still do that. And, you want to have some tools, you want to have some education out there. So again, get that toolbox. We got a lot of great things about how to find the right balance, how to make sure your money lasts. Those are obviously big ways to not fail. And then you can even read the book, Worry Less Wealth. So again, if you want a copy of that toolbox, all you have to do is text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, 800-454-1184. Or you can download or link to it directly at wealthcreatorradio.com. wealthcreatorradio.com. That's all for this week's show. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week.
Information provided during Wealth Creator Radio is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Individuals should thoroughly review the contract for specific details of the product features and costs. Income payments and withdrawals from deferred annuities are generally taxable as ordinary income in the year they are taken. Eric Heckman offers investment advisory services through Heckman Financial and Insurance Services, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Any tax advice given as part of this presentation is not intended to be used and cannot be used by the taxpayer for the purpose of avoiding tax penalties or promoting, marketing, or recommending to another party any matter or transaction addressed herein. The views and opinions expressed in the program are not necessarily those of the radio station or its sponsors, and they should not construe as legal, tax, or investment advice. You should always consult the appropriate advisor before making any financial decision.